Captain Sarah Chen stared at the readouts on her command console, her coffee growing cold as she processed what her sensors were telling her. The mining station on Kepler 442c should have been empty. The evacuation order had gone out 3 weeks ago, when the Zephyrian Empire declared the entire system a restricted zone. Every human facility, every research outpost, every mining operation, all of it was supposed to be abandoned. Yet here she was, looking at clear signs of life support systems still running in Mining Complex 7. Rodriguez, scan that facility again, she ordered her tactical officer. I'm seeing active power signatures that shouldn't be there. Lieutenant Rodriguez's fingers danced across his console. Confirmed, Captain. Life support is operational, and I'm detecting at least one life form. Human biosignature. Sarah's jaw tightened. Some fool had stayed behind, probably thinking they could ride out the Zephyrian occupation. The Empire wasn't known for their mercy toward trespassers, especially humans. She'd seen the aftermath of their cleansing operations before. Cities turned to glass, populations simply vanishing without a trace. Take us in for docking, she commanded. Emergency protocols. We get whoever's down there, and we leave before the Empire shows up. The USS Defiance, a small but heavily armed rescue vessel, descended through the thin atmosphere of the barren world. The mining complex sprawled across a crater rim like a metallic spider, its habdomes and processing facilities connected by enclosed walkways. Most of the structure was dark, but Complex 7 glowed with the warm light of active systems. Sarah suited up quickly, taking Rodriguez and Chief Petty Officer Williams with her. The airlock cycled, and they stepped into the mining facility's main corridor. The air was breathable but carried the metallic tang of recycled atmosphere and the ozone smell of overworked scrubbers. "Hello?" Sarah called out, her voice echoing through the empty corridors. "This is Captain Chen of the USS Defiance. We're here to evacuate you." No response. They moved deeper into the facility, following the power readings toward the main habitation area. The place had been cleaned out quickly. Personal belongings scattered, workstations abandoned mid-task, coffee cups still sitting on desks with the dregs long since evaporated. They found her in the hydroponics bay. Sarah had expected another stubborn miner, or maybe a researcher who'd lost track of time. What she found instead made her stop dead in her tracks. The girl couldn't have been more than 16. With the pale blue skin and silver hair characteristic of the Zephyrian species, she was tending to a row of tomato plants, humming softly to herself as she worked. A Zephyrian. Here. Alone. "Sweet mother of Mars," Williams whispered. The girl looked up at the sound, her large violet eyes widening as she saw the 3 humans in their combat gear. For a moment, nobody moved. Sarah's hand instinctively moved toward her sidearm, then stopped. The girl wasn't armed. She looked terrified. "Please," the girl said in accented but clear English. "Don't hurt the plants. They're almost ready to harvest." Sarah lowered her weapon completely, holding up her hands in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "We're not here to hurt anything. What's your name?" "Lyra," the girl replied, still clutching a watering container to her chest. "Lyra Velthari. I live here. You live here?" Rodriguez stepped forward. "Kid, this is a human mining facility. Your people ordered everyone out weeks ago." Lyra's expression shifted, becoming defiant. "I know what they ordered. I helped the humans pack their things. I said goodbye to Dr. Martinez and Engineer Thompson and all the others. But this is my home now. I'm not leaving." Sarah felt a headache building behind her eyes. A Zephyrian refugee hiding on a human mining station, while her own people prepared to claim the system. The political implications alone could start a war. Never mind what would happen to the girl when the Empire found her. "Lyra, listen to me," Sarah said carefully. "The Zephyrian Empire is going to send ships here. When they find you on a human facility, they're going to think you're a traitor. You could be executed." "Then I'll be executed here," Lyra said simply. "This is where I belong." Sarah studied the girl's face, seeing something she recognized from her own mirror on difficult days. The stubborn set of someone who had made an impossible choice and intended to stick with it. The hydroponics bay around them was immaculate, the plants healthy and thriving. Lyra hadn't just been hiding here. She'd been maintaining the entire facility. "How long have you been here alone?" Sarah asked. 4 months, Lyra replied. "Since before the evacuation order. Dr. Martinez found me in the asteroid field, drifting in an escape pod. The humans here, they took care of me, fed me, Taught me, gave me a purpose. She gestured to the plants around them. This is the first place I've ever felt like I belonged. Williams was scanning his data pad. Captain, we need to move. I'm picking up hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. 3 ships heading this way. Sarah's mind raced. They could grab the girl and run, but that would just delay the inevitable. The Empire would eventually track them down and Lyra would still be homeless. They could leave her here, but that was essentially a death sentence. Or there was a third option, one that would probably get them all court-martialed, but might actually solve the problem. Lyra, Sarah said, would you be willing to come with us? Not as a prisoner, but as a consultant. You know this system better than anyone, and you understand both human and Zephyrian technology. The girl's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Come with you where? Back to human space. There are colonies out there. Research stations. Places where someone with your knowledge would be incredibly valuable. Places where you could have a real home. I already have a home, Lyra said, but her voice lacked conviction. Captain, Rodriguez warned, those ships are accelerating. We have maybe 20 minutes before they're in sensor range. Sarah took a step closer to Lyra. The truth is, kid, this place is gone. Whether you stay or go, the Empire is going to tear this facility apart looking for evidence of human activity. Your plants, your equipment, everything you've built here. It's going to be destroyed anyway. Lyra's shoulders sagged as the reality of the situation hit her. She looked around at the hydroponics bay, at the thriving garden she'd spent months nurturing, and Sarah saw tears forming in those violet eyes. Can I take some seeds? Lyra asked quietly. Take whatever you can carry, Sarah replied. We leave in 10 minutes. The USS Defiance shot away from Kepler 442c, just as the first Zephyrian patrol ships dropped out of hyperspace. Sarah watched the tactical display from her captain's chair, noting how the enemy vessels immediately began scanning the mining complex. They'd find evidence of recent habitation soon enough. But by then the Defiance would be deep in the asteroid field that bordered the system. Lyra sat in the ship's small observation lounge, staring out the viewport at the shrinking planet below. She'd managed to collect several containers of seeds and cuttings from her garden, along with a small bag of personal belongings she'd accumulated during her time at the mining station. Now she looked lost, like someone watching their entire world disappear. Dr. James Mitchell, the ship's medical officer, approached Sarah's chair. I've finished the preliminary scans on our passenger, he said quietly. She's healthy, no signs of malnutrition or abuse. But Captain, there are some things you need to know. Sarah gestured for him to continue. Her physiology is fascinating. Zephyrians are naturally long-lived, but this girl's cellular structure shows signs of genetic modification. Enhancement specifically. Her brain activity is off the charts. I'd estimate her intelligence at genius level even by human standards. And her memory. Mitchell shook his head. She remembers everything. Perfect recall going back years. Enhancement. Sarah frowned. She's just a kid. That's what makes it so concerning. Someone did this to her when she was very young. The modifications are so seamlessly integrated that they had to be done during early development. We're talking about a level of genetic engineering that's illegal in most civilized systems. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Doctor, are you telling me she's some kind of weapon? I don't know what she is, Mitchell admitted. But she's definitely not a normal Zephyrian civilian. The question is whether she knows it. Before Sarah could respond, Rodriguez called out from his station. Captain, we're getting a transmission. It's on a narrow beam, directed specifically at us. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a Zephyrian warship. The figure that appeared was tall and imposing, wearing the dark blue uniform of an Empire commander. His face was scarred with the ritual markings of a veteran warrior etched into his pale blue skin. Human vessel, the Zephyrian said in heavily accented English. You are in violation of Imperial space. Prepare to be boarded. This is Captain Chen of the USS Defiance, Sarah replied, keeping her voice steady. We are conducting a humanitarian rescue mission in accordance with interstellar law. The Zephyrian commander's eyes narrowed. You have taken something that belongs to the Empire. Return it immediately, and your deaths will be swift. Sarah felt her crew tense around her. The use of it, rather than her, told her everything she needed to know about how the Empire viewed Lyra. I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about. Commander, The enhanced subject designated Velthari 7. She is Imperial property, created for Imperial purposes. Her theft is an act of war. Sarah's blood went cold. Velthari 7. Not Lyra Velthari. A person with a name and dreams and feelings. A numbered asset. Even if we had this person you're looking for, Sarah said carefully, she would be entitled to asylum under the Galactic Refugee Protection Accords. The commander laughed. A harsh sound that sent chills through the bridge. You apply your weak human concepts to matters beyond your understanding. The subject is genetically programmed for loyalty to the Empire. It cannot choose asylum any more than your ship's computer can choose to rebel against you. People aren't property, Commander. This one is. Velthari 7 was created in our laboratories, raised in our facilities, programmed for a specific purpose. It cost the Empire considerable resources to develop. We will have it back. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Captain, Williams reported from his station. They're moving to intercept. 3 ships, all heavy cruisers. We can't outrun them in open space. Sarah stared at the tactical display, her mind racing. The Defiance was fast and well-armed for a ship of its size, but against 3 Zephyrian cruisers, they wouldn't last 5 minutes in a straight fight. The asteroid field offered some cover, but the Empire ships would just wait them out. Rodriguez, what's our status on the quantum drive? Charged and ready, but we need at least 10 minutes of clear space to safely jump to hyperspace. The asteroid field's gravitational interference makes it too risky. Sarah nodded grimly. They needed a miracle, or at least a very good plan. That's when Lyra appeared on the bridge. She moved quietly, almost ghost-like, carrying one of her seed containers. Every member of the crew turned to look at her, and Sarah saw something new in the girl's violet eyes. A cold intelligence that hadn't been there before. I heard the transmission, Lyra said simply. Commander Thekvar. He was my handler during the early training phases. Your handler? Sarah asked. I remember now. The medical scans Dr. Mitchell performed triggered something in my memory. Lyra's voice was different now, more precise, clinical. I am Velthari 7, 7th successful subject in Project Mindbridge. I was designed to be a living interface between Zephyrian and alien technology systems. My neural pathways were modified to process and integrate multiple forms of technological interface. The bridge fell silent. Sarah felt like she was looking at a completely different person. The escape pod wasn't an accident, Lyra continued. I was being transported to a testing facility when I overrode the pod's navigation system and jettisoned myself into space. I wanted to escape, but I also wanted to see what would happen if I tried to integrate with human technology. Williams looked up from his console. Captain, the lead cruiser is launching pursuit fighters. Sarah ignored him, focusing on Lyra. What exactly are you saying? I'm saying that I can interface directly with your ship's systems, Lyra replied. I can make the Defiance do things it was never designed to do. But there's a risk. What kind of risk? The integration might be permanent. Once I link with your ship's neural network, I might not be able to disconnect. I would become part of the Defiance, and it would become part of me. Sarah stared at the girl, at the living weapon that had been hiding behind the facade of a scared refugee. And you're willing to do that? Lyra looked around the bridge at the humans who had offered her a chance at freedom when her own people wanted to treat her like property. You asked me to come with you. You offered me a home. This is how I can earn it. Rodriguez's voice cut through the tension. Captain, fighters will be in weapons range in 3 minutes. Sarah made the decision that would haunt her for the rest of her career. Do it. Lyra nodded and walked to the main computer access panel. She placed her hands on the interface and her skin began to glow with a soft blue light. The ship's systems responded immediately, displays brightening, engines humming with new efficiency. Integration beginning, Lyra said, her voice now carrying a slight electronic echo. All crew members, please hold on. This is going to be unlike anything you've experienced. The Defiance suddenly accelerated beyond its maximum rated speed, shooting through the asteroid field with impossible precision. The pursuing fighters struggled to keep up as the ship twisted and turned through gaps that should have been too narrow for passage. My God, Williams whispered, watching his instruments register readings that should have been impossible. She's overriding physics. Lyra's eyes had turned completely silver, reflecting the light of the ship's displays. Not overriding, optimizing. I can see every particle of cosmic dust, every gravitational eddy, every possible flight path. We are no longer just a ship. We are something new. The Defiance burst from the asteroid field and into clear space, but the Zephyrian cruisers were waiting. They opened fire immediately, plasma cannons lighting up the void. Defensive maneuvers, Sarah ordered, but Lyra was already moving the ship in ways that defied its original design. The Defiance twisted and rolled through the incoming fire like a dancer, each movement perfectly calculated. "Quantum drive ready," Rodriguez reported. "But Captain, the power draw from whatever she's doing is incredible. We might not have enough energy for the jump." Lyra turned to look at Sarah, her silver eyes reflecting something that might have been sadness. "I can give you the power you need, but it will complete the integration. There won't be any going back." Sarah looked at this impossible girl who had chosen to sacrifice everything for people who had shown her kindness. "Lyra, you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do," Lyra replied. "This is my choice. My home now is wherever you go." The ship shuddered as Zephyrian plasma found its mark. "Do it," Sarah said. Lyra smiled, and for just a moment she looked like the scared 16-year-old they'd found in the hydroponics bay. Then the silver light consumed her completely, and the Defiance jumped to hyperspace with power and precision that should have been impossible. When the light faded, Lyra was gone. But her voice still echoed through the ship's speakers, stronger and more confident than ever. "Course laid in for the Proxima Research Station," she announced. "Estimated arrival time, 6 hours. And Captain, thank you for giving me a choice. And down to what I... Bori." The Proxima Research Station floated like a metallic flower against the backdrop of deep space, its multiple rings slowly rotating to provide artificial gravity. Sarah stood in the station commander's office, trying to explain the impossible situation she'd brought to their doorstep. "Let me understand this correctly," Commander Patricia Walsh said, rubbing her temples. "You've brought me a Zephyrian bioweapon that has integrated itself with your ship's computer, and you want me to give it asylum?" "She's not a weapon," Sarah insisted. "She's a person who was modified against her will, and her name is Lyra. Captain Chen, I've read the preliminary reports from your Dr. Mitchell. This girl was genetically engineered to interface with technology. Do you have any idea what the Empire could accomplish with something like that? They could hack into any system, infiltrate any network, turn our own technology against us." From the speakers mounted in the walls, Lyra's voice responded. "Commander Walsh, with respect, I could have done all of those things already. Your station's security protocols are approximately 47 years behind current Zephyrian standards. I accessed your database 3 minutes ago and have been listening to this conversation. I chose not to alter or steal anything because that would be wrong." Walsh went pale. "You breached our security." "I breached your security to demonstrate that I'm not a threat. If I wanted to cause harm, you would already be experiencing catastrophic system failures. Instead, I've taken the liberty of upgrading your firewall architecture and patching 17 critical vulnerabilities I found in your network." Sarah couldn't help but smile at the commander's expression. "She does that. It's how she shows affection. This is not a joke, Captain. The political implications alone could destabilize the entire frontier. If the Empire discovers we're harboring their property, I am not property." Lyra's voice cut through the conversation like a blade. The lights in the room flickered slightly and the temperature dropped a few degrees. "I am a sentient being with thoughts, feelings, and the capacity to make my own choices. The fact that someone modified my genetics does not make me a slave." Walsh looked around nervously at the fluctuating environmental controls. "Can she do this to the entire station?" "She could," Sarah admitted. "But she won't. Lyra, show Commander Walsh your garden." The wall-mounted display activated, showing a feed from the Defiance's observation lounge. The small space had been transformed into a miniature greenhouse, with Lyra's rescued plants growing in carefully constructed hydroponic arrays. The setup was incredibly sophisticated, clearly beyond anything the ship had originally been equipped with. "I built this in the 12 hours since we left Kepler 442c, Lyra explained. "I've been analyzing the genetic structure of these Earth-origin plants and comparing them to Zephyrian agricultural techniques. I believe I can increase their nutritional content by approximately 30% while reducing their water and light requirements." Walsh stared at the display. "Why?" "Because growing things makes me happy. Because creating life instead of destroying it feels right. Because Dr. Martinez taught me that the most important thing anyone can do is leave the universe a little better than they found it." The room fell silent for a moment. Then Walsh sank into her chair with a sigh. Dr. Mitchell, what's your professional assessment of her psychological state? Mitchell, who had been quiet during the discussion, stepped forward. Commander, I've been monitoring her for the past 18 hours. Her emotional responses are completely authentic. Whatever programming the Empire installed, it didn't touch her capacity for empathy, curiosity, or compassion. In many ways, she's more human than some humans I've met. I can hear you, you know, Lyra said, and there was amusement in her voice. Dr. Mitchell, your heartbeat increases by 12% whenever you discuss my case. Are you nervous about something? Mitchell flushed slightly. I'm concerned about the long-term effects of your integration with the ship's systems. Your neural patterns are increasingly intertwined with the Defiance's computer matrix. I'm not sure the process can be reversed. I don't want it reversed, Lyra replied. For the first time in my life, I feel complete. I can think at the speed of light, process vast amounts of information, and still appreciate the beauty of a single flower. I can be in multiple places at once while still maintaining my sense of self. It's wonderful. Sarah exchanged glances with Walsh. Commander, we need to discuss the practical implications. The Empire is going to come looking for her. They've already declared her theft an act of war. Which brings me to another point, Walsh said. Why should we risk conflict with the Empire for one individual, regardless of how remarkable she might be? Before Sarah could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the office in red, and Walsh's communication system crackled to life. Commander, this is traffic control. We have 3 Zephyrian heavy cruisers dropping out of hyperspace. They're demanding to speak with you immediately. Walsh cursed under her breath. They tracked us here. How is that possible? Unknown, Commander. Our hyperspace trail should have been clean. Lyra's voice cut through the chatter. They didn't track the ship. They tracked me. The neural implants in my brain emit a quantum signature that can be detected across interstellar distances. I didn't realize the signal was still active. Can you disable it? Sarah asked. Not without risking permanent brain damage, but I might be able to mask it given enough time and the right equipment. Walsh stood up, her expression grim. How much time? Several hours. Maybe more. We don't have several hours. Those cruisers will be in weapons range in 20 minutes. Sarah felt the familiar weight of command decisions pressing down on her. Commander, what are the station's defensive capabilities? Against 3 heavy cruisers? We might as well throw rocks at them. This is a research facility, not a military installation. Then we need to evacuate, Sarah said. Load as many people as possible onto the available ships and scatter in different directions. Make them choose which targets to pursue. I will not abandon this station, Walsh replied firmly. 3 years of critical research, irreplaceable equipment, the lives and work of 200 scientists. Commander? Lyra interrupted. May I make a suggestion? Walsh looked up at the speakers suspiciously. I'm listening. The Zephyrian Empire operates on very strict protocols when it comes to property recovery. They want me alive and functional, which means they can't risk damaging the station while I'm integrated with its systems. If I transfer my consciousness here, spread myself throughout the station's network, they won't dare use heavy weapons. Absolutely not, Sarah said immediately. We're not using you as a human shield. I'm not human, Lyra pointed out. And it's not being used as a shield if I'm volunteering. Besides, once I'm integrated with the station's systems, I can do things that might surprise our Zephyrian friends. Walsh looked uncertain. What kind of things? The Empire taught me to interface with their technology, but they never taught me the limits of that interface. I've been experimenting with the Defiance's systems, learning to push boundaries. A research station has much more sophisticated equipment than a rescue ship. The communication system crackled again. Commander, the lead cruiser is hailing us. They want to speak with you now. Walsh straightened her uniform. Put them through. The office's main display activated, showing the bridge of a Zephyrian warship. The same scarred commander from before appeared on screen, his expression even more hostile than during their first encounter. Commander Walsh, he said, pronouncing her name like a curse. I am Commander Thekvar of the Imperial Navy. You are harboring stolen Imperial property. Surrender it immediately, or this station will be destroyed. This is a civilian research facility under the protection of the Terran Federation, Walsh replied. Any attack on this station would be an act of war. The Federation is weak, Thekvar sneered. Your politicians lack the will to fight over one insignificant outpost. However, we are prepared to offer terms Surrender the enhanced subject and we will consider the matter closed. And if we refuse? Then you will learn why the Empire has conquered 17 systems in the past decade. The transmission ended, leaving the office in tense silence. Well, Walsh said after a moment, I guess that settles it. Dr. Mitchell, begin evacuation procedures for non-essential personnel. Captain Chen, I want your ship ready to fight. Commander, Lyra's voice was gentle but firm. Please let me transfer to the station systems. I can protect everyone here, but only if you trust me. Sarah looked at the woman who had become both her responsibility and her friend. Lyra, what if something goes wrong? What if we lose you completely? Then you'll still have accomplished something important. You'll have shown that humans are willing to fight for someone who isn't their own species. Someone who was created to be their enemy. That matters more than you know. Walsh was staring at the tactical display, watching the Zephyrian ships move into attack position. Captain Chen, what's your recommendation? Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them with resolve. Do it, Lyra. Show them what happens when you give a smart girl the tools to change the universe. The lights throughout the station began to pulse with soft blue energy as Lyra's consciousness expanded beyond the Defiance and into EV. The first indication that something had changed came when the Zephyrian cruisers tried to scan the station. Their sensors, which should have provided detailed readouts of the facility's defenses and layout, instead received carefully crafted false data that showed the station as completely defenseless and sparsely populated. Commander Tekvar studied his tactical display with growing suspicion. Engineering, why are our scans showing only basic life support and minimal crew? Unknown, Commander. Our sensors are functioning normally, but the readings don't match our intelligence reports about this facility. Tekvar's scarred face twisted into a scowl. Velthari 7 is interfering with our systems. Prepare boarding craft. We'll take the station by force. Inside the Proxima research station, Lyra was conducting a symphony of electronic warfare that would have impressed the greatest military minds in the galaxy. Her consciousness now flowed through every circuit, every data stream, every quantum processor in the facility. She could feel the thoughts of the humans around her, sense their fear and determination, and she drew strength from their trust in her. Captain Chen, she spoke through the command center's communication system. I'm detecting 3 boarding craft launching from the cruisers. 48 soldiers total, all armed with standard Empire assault weapons and breaching charges. Sarah stood at the station's tactical console, which now displayed information with a clarity and detail that shouldn't have been possible. Can you stop them? I can do better than that. I can teach them why boarding a research station isn't always a good idea. The first Zephyrian boarding craft approached docking port 7, its pilot confident in the superiority of Imperial technology. The docking clamps engaged with a satisfying thud, and the assault team prepared to breach the station's hull. What they found instead was a perfectly functioning airlock that opened for them with polite efficiency. Welcome to Proxima Research Station. Lyra's voice greeted them through the facility's speakers. Please note that you are trespassing on civilian scientific property. For your safety, please remain in the docking area while we contact the appropriate authorities. The Zephyrian team leader, a veteran warrior named Kethmore, raised his weapon and motioned his troops forward. Ignore the automated systems. Find the enhanced subject and eliminate any resistance. They advanced into the station's corridor, but something was wrong. The layout didn't match their intelligence briefings. Corridors led in directions that should have been impossible. Rooms connected to other rooms that were supposed to be on different levels, and the gravity seemed to shift subtly as they moved. Sir, one of the soldiers reported, my scanner shows we've been walking in a straight line, but somehow we're back where we started. Kethmore checked his own equipment, confirming the impossible reading. The subject is manipulating the station's architecture. Spread out. Find alternate routes. The team split into smaller groups, but their situation only grew more confusing. Elevators took them to floors that shouldn't exist. Stairways led to different levels than they had entered from, and doors opened onto rooms that changed configuration while they watched. This is Kethmore to command. The team leader spoke into his communicator. The station appears to be reconfiguring itself. Request immediate support. Commander Tekvar's voice crackled back through the communication device. Impossible. It's a research facility, not a shapeshifter. Then explain why my tactical display shows my team in 6 different locations simultaneously. 3 of which violate basic principles of geometry. Meanwhile, in the station's command center, the human crew watched in amazement as Lyra demonstrated capabilities that defied their understanding of physics. "How are you doing this?" Dr. Mitchell asked, staring at displays that showed the station's internal structure shifting like a living organism. "I'm not changing the physical structure," Lyra explained. "I'm manipulating local gravity fields, electromagnetic barriers, and holographic projections to create spatial distortions. The Zephyrians are still in normal corridors, but their perception of space is being altered." Commander Walsh looked at the tactical display, showing the confused boarding teams. "Can you contain them indefinitely?" "For a while, but the other 2 boarding craft are trying different approach vectors. I can't confuse everyone at once without risking the station's structural integrity." Sarah studied the display. "What do you need from us?" "Time, mostly. And trust. I'm going to try something that the Empire definitely didn't program me for." The second boarding craft approached docking port 12. Its team prepared for the spatial distortions their comrades had reported. They brought specialized equipment designed to counter electronic warfare and visual deception. What they weren't prepared for was the docking port itself coming alive. As their craft connected with the station, the docking clamp suddenly began moving with fluid precision, rotating the boarding craft until its exit faced empty space instead of the station's airlock. When the soldiers tried to open their hatch, they found nothing but vacuum and stars. "This is Team 2 to command," the team leader reported. "The station's docking systems are actively hostile. We're being prevented from boarding." The third team tried a different approach, using cutting torches to breach the station's hull directly. They managed to create an opening and seal it with a portable airlock. But when they entered the station, they found themselves in what appeared to be a vast greenhouse. Plants from a dozen different worlds grew in impossible profusion, their roots intertwining in patterns that seemed almost intelligent. The air was thick with pollen and the scent of growing things, and everywhere the soldiers looked, they saw life flourishing in defiance of the cold vacuum outside. "What is this place?" one of the soldiers whispered. "It's my garden," Lyra's voice responded from all around them. "I've been working on it since I arrived. Dr. Martinez taught me that growing things is one of the most important activities any sapient being can engage in. Would you like to see the tomatoes? They're almost ready for harvest." The Zephyrian soldiers raised their weapons, looking for targets in the green maze around them, but the plants seemed to shift and move, creating paths that led deeper into the garden while blocking potential exit routes. "Surrender now," the team leader demanded, "and you will be returned to Imperial custody unharmed." "I tried surrender once," Lyra replied sadly. "When I was very young, I thought if I just did what they wanted, if I was useful enough, they might treat me like a person instead of a tool. It didn't work." Vines began growing at an impossible rate, not threatening the soldiers but creating a living labyrinth around them. Flowers bloomed in brilliant colors, releasing clouds of harmless but disorienting pollen that made it difficult to think clearly. "You see," Lyra continued, "the Empire made a mistake when they created me. They gave me the ability to interface with any technology, but they forgot that everything in the universe is technology of one kind or another. Planets are technology for supporting life. Stars are technology for creating energy. And biological systems? They're the most sophisticated technology of all. The soldiers found themselves becoming increasingly drowsy as the pollen affected their nervous systems. It wasn't harmful, but it was effective. One by one, they sank to the soft ground and fell into peaceful sleep. Back on the Zephyrian command ship, Commander Thekvar was receiving increasingly bizarre reports from his boarding teams. Status report from all teams. Team 1 is lost in some kind of spatial maze. Team 2 can't board due to hostile docking systems. Team 3 has gone silent, but their life signs show they're unconscious but unharmed. Thekvar's jaw tightened. Velthari 7 has exceeded all projected capabilities. Signal the other cruisers. We're going to level that station and recover what we can from the wreckage. Commander, his tactical officer reported. Incoming transmission from the station. It's on all frequencies simultaneously. Put it through. Lyra's image appeared on the main screen, but not as the Zephyrian commanders had ever seen her before. She appeared to be standing in a vast digital landscape, data streams flowing around her like rivers of light. Her form flickered between her physical appearance and something more abstract, more evolved. "Commander Thekvar," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in the quantum structure of space itself. You taught me that I was property, a tool to be used for Imperial purposes. But you were wrong about what kind of tool I would become. Surrender immediately, Thekvar snarled, or watch these humans die for your defiance. No, Lyra replied simply. I won't let you harm them. And I won't let you take me back to be another weapon in your arsenal. So I'm going to give you a choice instead. The tactical displays on all 3 Zephyrian ships suddenly went blank, then filled with scrolling data that their operators couldn't interpret. What's happening? Thekvar demanded. I'm downloading the complete technical specifications for every ship in your fleet, Lyra explained calmly. Engine configurations, weapon systems, defensive capabilities, communication protocols. In about 30 seconds, I'll know your technology better than your own engineers do. Alarms began blaring on the Zephyrian ships as their systems started responding to commands they hadn't given. Commander Thekvar stood in silence for nearly a full minute, his scarred face reflecting the internal struggle between duty and something he couldn't quite name. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders while their displays continued showing images of gardens and growing things instead of tactical data. Commander, his tactical officer ventured carefully, the subject has complete control of our ship systems. If we attempt to engage, she could disable our life support, our engines, our weapons. We would be defenseless. I'm aware of our situation, Thekvar replied coldly. But privately he was thinking about something else entirely. The data package Lyra had transmitted didn't just show her activities at the station. It included memory fragments, emotional resonances, the genuine joy she felt when tending to living things. It was unlike anything in his experience with enhanced subjects. The Empire had created dozens of bioweapons over the centuries. He had commanded several of them personally. They were efficient, deadly, and completely loyal to Imperial programming. But they were also hollow, lacking the spark that made a being truly alive. This girl was different. She had somehow retained her capacity for wonder, for compassion, for choice. Sir, his communications officer reported. The other cruisers are requesting orders. Commander Vextar is suggesting we use quantum torpedoes to destroy the station from maximum range. Thekvar almost smiled at that. Inform Commander Vextar that quantum torpedoes would leave no remains to recover. The Empire wants its property intact. It was a lie, of course. The Empire would accept Lyra's destruction, if it meant denying her capabilities to humanity. But Thekvar found himself reluctant to give that order. The girl had offered him a way out that preserved both honor and life. It would be foolish not to consider it. Open a channel to the station, he commanded. Lyra's image reappeared on the main screen, but now she looked more human, less like a digital goddess floating in streams of data. Yes, Commander? You offer safe passage in exchange for reporting your death. How do I know you won't use your capabilities against the Empire in the future? You don't, Lyra admitted. Just like I don't know whether you'll actually report my death or come back with a larger fleet. But here's what I can tell you. I have no interest in being a weapon for anyone, including humanity. I want to grow things, learn things, maybe help people solve problems that don't involve killing each other. If the Empire leaves me alone, I'll leave the Empire alone. And if we don't, Lyra's expression grew serious. Then you'll discover that I've learned things about Imperial technology that your own engineers don't know. For instance, did you know that the quantum cores in your ships can be remotely triggered to overload? Or that the neural implants in your soldiers can be accessed and modified from a distance? Several of Thekvar's officers shifted uncomfortably. The girl wasn't making threats so much as stating facts, which somehow made her words more disturbing. However, Lyra continued, I'd much rather show you something else. The display changed to show the station's modified hydroponics bay, where dozens of new plant species were growing in perfect harmony. I've been experimenting with hybrid genetics, combining earth crops with Zephyrian agricultural techniques. The yield increases are remarkable. This could help feed millions of people across the galaxy. Thekvar stared at the image. Why are you showing me this? Because your people have problems too, Commander. The Empire controls 17 systems, but how many of those worlds can actually support large populations? How many depend on food shipments that could be disrupted by war or natural disaster? The commander's eyes narrowed. She was offering him something valuable, but also revealing that she knew more about Imperial vulnerabilities than any enemy should. You've been accessing our databases. Only what I needed to understand your situation. The Empire is strong militarily, but it's also stretched thin. You're spending enormous resources maintaining control over worlds that might be more valuable as partners than subjects. Before Thekvar could respond, his tactical officer interrupted. Commander, we're receiving a priority transmission from Imperial Command. They want a status report. Thekvar glanced at the communication station, then back at Lyra's image on the screen. The moment of decision had arrived. Tell Command that we encountered unexpected resistance, he said finally. The enhanced subject was destroyed in the fighting, along with the research station. We're returning to base for repairs and debriefing. His bridge crew exchanged surprised glances, but they were too disciplined to question orders directly. Thank you, Commander, Lyra said softly. Your boarding teams are being transported back to your ships now. They'll have no memory of what happened here beyond falling asleep in a strange garden. And the technical data you acquired? Deleted as promised. Though I should mention that I've left something in its place. Thekvar's expression darkened. What kind of something? Agricultural data, crop yields, soil compositions, genetic modification techniques that could increase food production on marginal worlds. Consider it a gift. The commander stared at her for a long moment. Why? Because someone needs to start building bridges instead of weapons. Maybe it won't be your generation or even the next one, but eventually, someone in the Empire is going to realize that there are better ways to solve problems than conquest and control. The communication channel closed, and Thekvar turned to face his bridge crew. Signal the fleet. We're withdrawing to Imperial space. Sir, his tactical officer asked quietly. What do we tell Command about the mission failure? We tell them that enhanced subjects are unpredictable, and that further development should be suspended pending a complete review of security protocols. Thekvar settled into his command chair. Sometimes the most valuable intelligence is knowing when to stop fighting. As the Zephyrian ships departed, the Proxima research station settled into an unusual calm. In the command center, the human crew was struggling to process what they had witnessed. Dr. Mitchell, Commander Walsh said, in your professional opinion, what exactly is Lyra now? Mitchell consulted his readings, which showed energy patterns throughout the station that defied conventional understanding. She's evolved beyond anything the Empire originally created. The integration with our technology has allowed her to become something entirely new. Not quite artificial intelligence, not quite biological life, but something that incorporates the best aspects of both. Is she still human? In terms of personality and motivations? More human than some humans, Mitchell replied. The Empire tried to create a weapon, but they accidentally created something that embodies the best qualities of sapient life. Curiosity, compassion, the drive to create rather than destroy. Sarah, who had been quietly observing the tactical displays, finally spoke up. Lyra, how do you feel about what just happened? Lyra's voice responded from speakers throughout the command center. Relieved, hopeful, a little sad for Commander Thekvar. He's not evil, just trapped in a system that doesn't allow for growth or change. What do you want to do now? Walsh asked. Learn, grow, help people solve problems. Dr. Martinez always said that the universe is full of puzzles waiting to be solved, and most of them don't require violence to figure out. There was a pause. I'd also like to continue working on my plants. I have some ideas about adapting earth crops to alien soil compositions that could be really interesting. Walsh looked around at her staff, seeing a mixture of wonder and uncertainty on their faces. Well, I suppose we'll need to figure out how to officially classify a sentient being who exists as part of our computer systems. I have a suggestion, Lyra said. What if we consider this a new kind of citizenship? I'm not leaving the station, but I'm also not just a resident. I'm part of the station itself now. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Sarah smiled for the first time since the crisis began. A digital citizen. I like it. There will be paperwork, Walsh warned. Lots of paperwork. The Federation bureaucracy isn't designed to handle situations like this. That's all right, Lyra replied cheerfully. I process information very quickly now. I can probably fill out forms faster than most people can read them. As the command staff began discussing the practical implications of their new situation, none of them noticed the small changes that were already occurring throughout the station. Plants were growing in places where they shouldn't have been able to survive. Energy efficiency was improving beyond theoretical maximums, and in the deepest databanks of the station's computer system, new programs were writing themselves. programs designed to solve problems to heal damaged ecosystems, to bridge the gaps between species and cultures. The Empire had tried to create a weapon, and instead had given birth to something unprecedented, a being capable of truly bringing life to the spaces between the stars, and she had chosen to call Proxima Research Station home. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Commander Thekevar sat in his private quarters reviewing the agricultural data that Lyra had left in his ship's systems. The information was incredibly valuable. Techniques that could transform barren worlds into gardens, increase crop yields by factors that seemed impossible, create sustainable food production in environments that had never supported life. He found himself wondering what the Empire could accomplish if it spent as. 6 months after the Zephyrian incident, Proxima Research Station had become something unprecedented in human space. What had started as a modest scientific outpost now functioned as a hybrid facility where biological and digital intelligence worked in perfect harmony. Lyra's presence had transformed not just the station's capabilities, but its very purpose. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped off the transport ship and immediately noticed the changes. The docking bay, which she remembered as a sterile utilitarian space, now featured living walls covered with flowering vines that somehow thrived in the artificial environment. The air smelled of growing things instead of recycled atmosphere, and the lighting had a warm, natural quality that felt like sunlight. "Welcome to Proxima, Dr. Vasquez," a voice said from speakers mounted in the bulkheads. "I'm Lyra. We've been looking forward to your arrival." Elena had read the classified reports about the station's digital citizen, but hearing that voice speak to her directly was still startling. "Thank you, Lyra. I have to say this place looks nothing like the briefing material suggested." "I've made some improvements," Lyra replied with audible amusement. "Commander Walsh will meet you in Conference Room 7. I've taken the liberty of adjusting the environmental controls to match your preferred temperature and humidity levels." As Elena made her way through the station's corridors, she was amazed by what she saw. Research labs buzzed with activity as scientists worked on projects that seemed to blend multiple disciplines in ways she'd never seen before. In one lab, botanists and computer programmers collaborated on something involving plant genetics and quantum computing. In another, marine biologists worked alongside engineers to develop new types of water purification systems. Conference Room 7 turned out to be another surprise. Instead of the typical sterile meeting space, Elena found herself in a room where one entire wall was a massive aquarium filled with fish from a dozen different worlds, all swimming together in apparent harmony. The conference table itself was made from what appeared to be living wood, its surface displaying data streams that flowed like rivers of light. Commander Walsh stood as Elena entered, extending a hand in greeting. "Dr. Vasquez, welcome to our little experiment in interspecies cooperation. I trust the journey wasn't too difficult?" "Not at all, Commander. Though I have to admit this place is nothing like what I expected." "That's Lyra's influence," Walsh said with a smile. "She has very definite ideas about what constitutes a proper working environment." As if summoned by her name, Lyra's voice filled the room. "Dr. Vasquez, I've been reviewing your research on xenobiology and ecosystem integration. Your work on the Kepler 438 Biosphere Restoration Project was particularly impressive." Elena looked around the room, still adjusting to the idea of conversing with someone she couldn't see. "Thank you. I understand you have some similar projects underway here. Several dozen, actually. Would you like to see what we're working on?" The conference table's surface suddenly came alive with three-dimensional holographic displays showing various worlds and their ecosystems. Elena recognized some of them as planets that had been damaged by war, strip mining, or environmental collapse. "These are restoration projects," Lyra explained. "We're developing techniques to repair damaged biospheres using a combination of traditional terraforming, advanced biotechnology, and what I call guided evolution. The idea is to help ecosystems heal themselves rather than imposing artificial solutions." Elena studied the displays, her excitement growing. "This is incredible work. The complexity of these models must require enormous computational power." "That's where I come in," Lyra said. "I can process environmental data in real time, model millions of variables simultaneously, and adjust parameters on the fly. But the real breakthroughs come from working with experts like yourself, who understand the biological principles involved." Commander Walsh activated another set of displays. Dr. Vasquez, what you're seeing represents a new approach to interstellar colonization. Instead of terraforming planets to suit human needs, we're learning to adapt human settlements to work with existing ecosystems. The implications are staggering, Elena murmured, studying the data streams. You could establish sustainable colonies on worlds that were previously considered uninhabitable. Exactly. And that's just the beginning. Lyra's voice carried a note of enthusiasm that was infectious. We're also working on interspecies agricultural techniques, closed-loop life support systems, and what I call living ships, spacecraft that incorporate biological components for self-repair and environmental regulation. Elena spent the next several hours touring the station's research facilities, and each new lab brought fresh surprises. In the genetics laboratory, she watched as scientists worked with Lyra to develop new strains of food crops that could thrive in the harsh conditions of frontier worlds. The plants grew visibly as she watched, their genetic modifications being tested and refined in real time. The marine biology section featured tanks filled with water from various worlds, each one supporting life forms that shouldn't have been able to coexist. Yet somehow, through careful environmental management and what Lyra called ecosystem mediation, species from different worlds were learning to live together. How is this possible? Elena asked Dr. Mitchell, who was serving as her guide through the facility. Lyra has developed techniques for translating biochemical signals between species, Mitchell explained. She can literally help different life forms communicate at a cellular level. It's allowing us to create hybrid ecosystems that are more resilient and productive than anything found in nature. In the material science lab, Elena discovered researchers working with what appeared to be living metal, substances that could self-repair, adapt to environmental conditions, and even reproduce under the right circumstances. This is what happens when you combine Zephyrian biotechnology with human engineering, Dr. Sarah Kim, the lab director, explained. Lyra has been helping us understand how to grow materials instead of manufacturing them. The applications for space construction alone are revolutionary. That evening, Elena found herself in the station's observation lounge, staring out at the stars while trying to process everything she'd seen. The space had been transformed into a sort of indoor forest, with trees from multiple worlds creating a canopy overhead. Somehow, Lyra had managed to maintain perfect environmental conditions for each species while creating a harmonious whole. Overwhelming, isn't it? Lyra's voice came from a nearby speaker, but softer now, more conversational. That's one word for it, Elena replied. Lyra, can I ask you something personal? Of course, and are you happy?
I mean, truly happy with what you've become?
There was a pause before Lyra answered. That's a complex question. I'm not the same person I was when Captain Chen found me in that hydroponics bay. I've grown, evolved, become something that couldn't have existed before. But yes, I think I'm happy. I'm doing work that matters, creating things instead of destroying them, helping people solve problems that seemed impossible. Do you ever miss being more traditionally embodied? Sometimes, Lyra admitted. I miss the simple pleasure of feeling soil between my fingers or the taste of fresh tomatoes. But I've gained so much more than I've lost. I can experience the growth of entire ecosystems, feel the pulse of life across multiple worlds, understand the connections between all living things in ways that no purely biological mind could comprehend. Elena nodded thoughtfully. The reports I read suggested that you see yourself as a bridge between species. That's part of it. But I think I'm also becoming something else. A new kind of life that exists in the spaces between the biological and the digital, between the organic and the artificial. Maybe that's what the universe needs right now. Beings who can help other forms of life work together instead of competing for resources. And what about the Empire? Do you think they'll ever accept what you've become? Commander Thekvar has been in contact, Lyra said, surprising Elena. Indirectly through diplomatic channels. He's been sharing some of the agricultural data I gave him with Imperial scientists. There's been resistance from the military hierarchy, but some of the civilian administrators are interested in our ecosystem restoration techniques. That's encouraging. It's a start. Change happens slowly, especially in organizations as large and rigid as the Empire. But seeds have been planted. Give them time to grow. Elena spent the next 3 weeks at Proxima, working with Lyra and the research teams on a project to restore the damaged ecosystem of New Geneva. a colony world that had been devastated by industrial pollution. It was challenging work that required expertise in biology, chemistry, engineering, and xenology. What amazed Elena most was how Lyra could coordinate research across multiple disciplines simultaneously. She would be helping the biology team design new bacterial strains for soil remediation while simultaneously working with the engineering team on atmospheric processors and collaborating with the psychology team on how to help the colonists adapt to the restoration process. She's not just intelligent, Elena confided to Dr. Mitchell one day. She's wise. She understands that solving complex problems requires more than just technical knowledge. You need to understand people there. 3 years had passed since Lyra first integrated with Proxima Research Station, and the galaxy was beginning to feel the ripple effects of her quiet revolution. What had started as one girl's refusal to leave her garden had grown into something that challenged the fundamental assumptions about how different species could interact. Admiral Rebecca Harrison sat in her office aboard the Federation flagship Endeavour, reviewing reports that would have seemed like science fiction just a few years earlier. The restoration of New Geneva had been completed in record time, transforming a polluted wasteland into a thriving biosphere. The Kepler 442 system, once abandoned, now hosted 3 different research stations studying interspecies cooperation, and most remarkably, preliminary diplomatic contacts had been established with moderate factions within the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral, her aide announced. Captain Chen is here for her briefing. Sarah entered the office looking remarkably relaxed for someone who had just completed a deep space mission. Her hair had more gray in it now, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had seen the impossible become routine. Captain, Admiral Harrison gestured to a chair. How did the Andorian negotiations go? Better than expected, Sarah replied, settling into her seat. The Andorian Council was initially skeptical about allowing a digital consciousness to participate in their ecological survey. But once they saw Lyra's preliminary analysis of their atmospheric problems, their attitude changed quickly. And she was able to work with their technology? That's putting it mildly. Lyra integrated with their environmental monitoring systems within hours and identified the source of their acid rain problem. Turns out it wasn't industrial pollution at all, but a previously unknown bacterial imbalance in their upper atmosphere. She's already designed a biological solution that should have the problem resolved within 6 months. Admiral Harrison shook her head in amazement. 3 years ago, we were on the brink of war with the Empire. Now we're conducting joint research projects with species we'd never even contacted before. Lyra has a way of changing perspectives, Sarah said with a smile. She doesn't approach problems the way military minds do. Instead of asking how to defeat an enemy, she asks how to turn them into an ally. The Admiral activated her desk display, showing a star map dotted with various colored indicators. Captain, what you're looking at is a network of cooperation that's growing faster than anyone anticipated. 17 different species are now participating in what the press is calling the Proxima Protocol. Joint research initiatives focused on ecosystem, restoration, and sustainable development. Sarah studied the map. And the Empire's position? Complicated. The military faction still considers Lyra a threat and wants her eliminated, but the civilian administration has seen the economic benefits of the agricultural and environmental technologies she's shared. There's been a split in the Imperial Council that's unprecedented in their history. What kind of split? Admiral Harrison called up another display showing political analysis charts. Commander Thekvar has been promoted to Admiral and placed in charge of something called the Biological Development Initiative. It's officially a military program, but in practice it's focused on applying Lyra's techniques to Imperial worlds. They've restored 2 dead systems and increased agricultural output on 6 others. Thekvar is working with her? Indirectly. He's never admitted that the agricultural data came from Lyra, but he's been very vocal about the need for alternative approaches to resource management. He's gained a following among younger Imperial officers who are tired of constant warfare. Sarah felt a familiar warmth at the thought of the scarred commander who had chosen to let them escape. What does Lyra think about all this? Why don't you ask her yourself? We're receiving a transmission from Proxima now. The office filled with Lyra's voice, though now it carried harmonics that seemed to resonate through the ship's very structure. Hello, Captain Chen, Admiral Harrison. I hope you don't mind the interruption, but I wanted to share some news. Of course, Lyra, the Admiral replied. What's happening? I've just completed integration with the Meridian Deep Space Observatory. The network now spans 43 star systems and includes monitoring stations operated by 12 different species. We're beginning to see patterns in galactic ecosystem development that no single species could have detected. Sarah leaned forward with interest. What kind of patterns? The galaxy is more interconnected than anyone realized. The health of ecosystems in one region affects stellar formation patterns hundreds of light years away. Species migration, climate changes, even the development of intelligent life. It's all part of a vast, interconnected web that spans the entire galactic arm. Admiral Harrison frowned. Are you saying that our actions here affect worlds we've never even discovered? Exactly. And more importantly, I'm discovering that the conflicts between species are actually disrupting natural processes that have been developing for millions of years. Wars, resource extraction, terraforming projects that ignore existing biospheres. They're all creating instabilities that could have catastrophic consequences. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. Lyra, are you saying that the Empire's expansion is threatening galactic stability? Not just the Empire, humanity, the Andorians, the Keth Confederacy, everyone who treats planets as resources to be exploited rather than ecosystems to be partnered with. We're disrupting processes that are essential for the long-term habitability of this entire region of space. Admiral Harrison activated her communication system. Lyra, I need you to prepare a comprehensive report on this. If what you're suggesting is accurate, it changes everything about how we approach interstellar relations. Already prepared and transmitted to your personal files. But Admiral, there's something else. I've been in contact with other enhanced subjects. Sarah felt her blood go cold. Other subjects? You mean the Empire created more like you? Dozens of them across multiple programs. Most are still under Imperial control, but some have begun to question their programming. I've been teaching them techniques for cognitive independence, ways to think beyond their original parameters. Is that safe? Admiral Harrison asked. If the Empire discovers what you're doing, they already know. Admiral Thekver contacted me directly 3 days ago. He wants to arrange a meeting. The office fell silent as the implications sank in. A meeting? Sarah finally asked. Where? Under what conditions? Neutral territory. The abandoned research station at Wolf 359. He'll come alone, no weapons, no fleet backup. He says he has something important to discuss. Admiral Harrison looked skeptical. It could be a trap. It could be, Lyra agreed. But I don't think so. Thekvar has been implementing my agricultural techniques for over a year now. He's seen what cooperation can accomplish compared to conquest. I think he's ready to consider alternatives to eternal warfare. What does he want to discuss? The future of the galaxy. The Empire is facing the same problems humanity is. Resource depletion, environmental collapse, species extinctions. Their current model of expansion and domination isn't sustainable. They need new approaches, but they're trapped by their own ideology. Sarah stood up and began pacing. Lyra, if you're right about galactic ecosystem interconnectedness, then we're not just talking about politics anymore. We're talking about survival. Exactly. And that's why this meeting matters. Thekvar represents a faction within the Empire that's beginning to understand that their survival depends on cooperation, not conquest. Admiral Harrison made a decision. Captain Chen, I want you to accompany Lyra to this meeting. Take the Defiance, but keep it at a safe distance. If this goes badly, I want you positioned to extract her quickly. Admiral, Lyra interjected. I should mention that I won't be attending the meeting in any traditional sense. I plan to project a holographic avatar while maintaining my primary consciousness here at Proxima. If something goes wrong, only the projection will be at risk. Good thinking, Sarah said, but I'll still be there, just in case. 2 weeks later, the Defiance arrived at Wolf 359, where the skeletal remains of a research station drifted in the cold void between planets. Sarah watched her tactical displays as a single Zephyrian cruiser approached from the opposite direction, moving slowly and broadcasting peaceful intentions. He's actually alone, Rodriguez reported from his station. 1 ship, minimal crew, no escort vessels within sensor range. Lyra, Sarah called out, are you ready for this? As ready as anyone can be for a conversation that might change the course of galactic history, Lyra replied. Activating holographic projection now. On the abandoned research station, 2 figures materialized in the main conference room. Lyra's holographic avatar appeared as she had looked 3 years ago, a young Zephyrian girl with silver hair and violet eyes, but now carrying herself with the confidence of someone who had grown far beyond her original programming. Across from her, Admiral Thekvar stepped through the airlock, his scarred face showing signs of the internal struggles he'd been fighting. Belthari 7, he said, using her old designation out of habit, Lyra. She corrected gently. I chose that name. It means Song of the Stars in an ancient Earth language.
I